So it's my great pleasure to represent our industry and all the work that we've done the past year. The biggest challenge is the 10 minutes because I feel we have done a lot. You will also see that there's a lot of repetition of what you've heard because this is the collaboration that we are engaging in, and so we are very aligned. So what is MAPPs? It doesn't require any time after this very compelling explanation by Dr. Eichler. But in terms of giving you some repetitive messages, it's around an early authorization, well-defined patient population, and we believe as an industry that the time is right because we have deeper scientific insights and we are better methodologies than ever. It's about then expanding that target population broader. It's about using new methods and methodologies and data sets, such as real-world evidence. Also, we see how important it is to get the patient perspective in the assessment. And to repeat the point, this is not about a regulatory licensing system. It's about an ecosystem that goes beyond the regulatory piece. It's about development, it's about licensing, it's about patient access. So to depict it with a nice picture from a linear process where you have bilateral conversations of our industry with the different stakeholders, with health authorities, HTA bodies, with patients' organizations, we believe that we can move into a much more collaborative system where everyone is at the table, where we discuss and with the different decision makers what the end game should be and where inputs are being looked at from the start. So moving to our deliverables, the 2014/2015 deliverables to date. So we had three big buckets. First of all, I guess the objective is clear. We want, as an industry, to see whether that ambition that we want to share is actually feasible and that we understand what the barriers are and what the context is that we need to work in, given that we want to stay within the current legal framework of the regulatory legislation. So there's three big buckets, and they have already been touched upon by Dr. Eichler. First of all, the pilots, and I will speak very briefly about that. Then we have invested a lot in the IMI2 projects because we believe it's a fantastic framework to bring us as collaborators together. And then we have put a lot of effort in aligning and engaging stakeholders through many ways of communication. So first, the EMA pilot, and I will also touch upon the initiative of the Commission, which is called STAMP. So we got the invitation by Dr. Eichler to participate by the EMA, I have to say, and to the point that was made earlier, we have very nicely prescribed to this project. We also are looking forward now to the input and the feedback that we get, and we are clearly challenged by the idea that we have to create more creative, intelligent programs. So I think it's certainly a challenge that we want to take home to our R&D colleagues. But I think the fact that we had this pilot that we could engage in, it's obviously the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it's clearly the key process that has helped us to make this concrete also in our own companies. Secondly, there's the Commission who brought together a group of experts in their project, which is called STAMP, which stands for Safe and Timely Access to Medicines for Patients. And they have engaged into looking at all the different systems and processes that we have around patient access. And we as the industry have strongly collaborated with them to give our experiences on, for instance, conditional approval, on early access. And with that input, we expect that the Commission will look at optimizing some of those processes and tools. There is a recognition that this is only the regulatory toolkit and that we are looking at a much broader ecosystem here, and that is also noted that by the Commission that there are other synergies that they should take into account. Moving to IMI, as I said, it's a wonderful framework that we have started to deploy. Initially, for IMI2, there was the five big key therapeutic areas and themes that were mentioned, and it was recognized that actually MAPPs should be part of each of those. That MAPPs is an enable, or that each of those projects should enable the MAPPs progress. And for that, the task force has developed guiding principles. We communicate those guiding principles to each of the SDGs that are working on those different projects. And with those guiding principles, we hope that we will embed project elements that will then help us make progress. As an example, we will continue to insist on biomarker and early and patient population identification in the different therapeutic areas. As an example, the different outcomes models that are being discussed, we could then look for their applicability in MAPPs. In addition, there is clearly also the need to look at MAPPs from an horizontal perspective across the different projects, and for that we have the project which is called the CSA, which Luc will explain in greater detail. And we also thought about, do we need additional projects that will help MAPPs, and the one that is on the table is the benefit risk, the patient preference elicitation in benefit risk, knowing how important it is to have the patient's voice in the decision making. In addition to looking forward and deploying the opportunities within IMI2, we looked back at what IMI1 has delivered to us in terms of enablers for MAPPs. And IMI financed the project and asked CASMI to look into a couple of IMI1 projects to look at its applicability. The result of this is a report that was launched late last year, and it does show that in many of the projects that we have engaged in IMI1, there are important components that will help us move forward with MAPPs. And of course, not on this slide and also not part of this particular project is the Get Real project, which obviously doesn't require a lot of explanation in terms of its validity for MAPPs, because MAPPs is all about additional evidence outside randomized clinical trials, and the Real World Evidence project is exactly looking at that. And then last but not least, the last component of our work is all around the efforts that we've done in terms of the stakeholder engagement. The CSA is probably the most important one, and it's about to start, so we are very thrilled to have that collaborative consortium in place. But in addition, there's a lot of activity and a lot of speech about this project, and we understand that it's important to provide clarity and to repeat what we are trying to achieve. We have had symposia with all of the stakeholders present. The DIA meeting in April in Paris, you could not avoid to hear about MAPPs with all the many sessions that were organized. We have peer-reviewed publications, past and in the makes. There are webinars that are being organized that are very well attended, so clearly different stakeholders want to understand what we are trying to accomplish. And last but not least, also referred to by Dr. Eichler, there is also interest in the United States to understand what we are trying to accomplish. And in October, there will be a meeting which is called together by the US Congress to talk about different, it's an international gathering of the world's thought leaders in new healthcare models, and the MAPPs group is an organizer as well as an invitee for this particular event. And then last but not least, to be very practical, as the messaging, the engagement, the building consensus is so important, there is a very specific site on the EFPIA portal that provides people with the different materials that can help with either conversations with your own stakeholder groups in the companies, with external partners, the guiding principles, and everything that we have talked about. which should be helpful for us in further engaging others. With that, Jeremy, I can turn it back to you.